Gold and silver are absolutely taking off right now. Seems like we're certainly in the middle of some type of a global currency crisis mixed with an energy crisis, mixed with a geopolitical crisis. And I can't say I'm excited about it at all. It's not good. But this is what we've been talking about on the channel for a long time. These types of things were coming, and there were ways to profit from it. And there are going to be ways to profit of it. At the end of the day, all of this happening, it's a wealth transfer. And one of the beneficiaries of that wealth transfer is commodities and silver specifically. And here to talk about all of that happening right now and silver specifically is my friend Mike Connor. He is the CEO of Vizsla Silver, traded on the New York Stock Exchange. And we're going to be breaking down what's happening in the global financial markets, how this could affect silver moving forward. And we're going to be talking a bit about Vizsla. So make sure you hit the like button on this video, send it out in the YouTube universe, comment down below, go silver go, or give us your silver price predictions right there down below in the comments. And it's good to see you, Mike.
You too, Jake. It's always good to catch up. And I mean, what a crazy day for metals today. And maybe I'll make it a little explanation here. I'm on the road marketing Vizsla right now, and that's why my background is the Panuco project, not the dark hotel room behind me. So
it looks good, though. I told you, you look like you're actually in Mexico right now.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been today, as the time of us recording this, it is March 8th, and gold is at $2,051. It was up as high as I think about 4% today. Mm-hmm. You're really starting to see the wheels fall off all of this stuff, and silver starting to move quite substantially. What do you make of all of it?
Well, it's just like what we've been talking about for the last 2 years or so. I looked at Bitcoin price as well too, and the whole argument was that we didn't need gold anymore, or commodities anymore. That the cryptocurrency would be the safe haven, and it's shown now that that really isn't true. I mean, look at gold. I think this is just the very first bit of a move for gold, and in conjunction with that, silver always lags a little bit, so. There's an opportunity when you see gold moving, you can buy silver and you can benefit from that. It's kind of a leading indicator. But, this is exactly how, we thought these things would play out. You have some geopolitical instability. We're also in the middle of a molecule crisis, as Jeff Curry says from Goldman Sachs. It's not gold, it's not silver, it's not just those metals. It's copper, it's nickel, it's tin, it's basically anything that you can't make digitally is going to be in higher demand, and these supply shocks are only emphasizing that.
I never heard that before, a molecule crisis. That's pretty crazy. I was talking to Willem Metalcoop today, and he was talking about, I believe it was nickel. They had to stop the trading on it, and you're seeing these incredible things. So this is the exact scenario of when you started Vizsla years ago. I think maybe you bought your project when, I don't know, maybe silver's like $14-15. You guys have been an incredible success story, up, I don't know what it is since you guys IPO'd. I don't know if it's 1,000% or whatever it is. You guys are up a lot. You guys have been a great success story. You got listed in New York Stock Exchange. You guys have been one of our sponsors. A lot of people have, including myself, have been a very happy shareholder that has done very well. You guys were one of the companies that, after silver squeeze, most silver stocks went the opposite way. They were down 30-40% for a while. And you guys were actually up during that time because great news and great progress. But you guys had a news release recently that was a correction through like some type of a miscalculation error on one of your projects. You guys had a little, maybe forget what it was, 8-10% sell off. You guys rebounded quite well. Seems like all your big investors understand it well and are very happy with it. And I also saw some comments, people asking to explain what had happened. So can you give everyone a breakdown?
Yeah, absolutely. And, with Vizsla, some of our core tenants are, first of all, it's extreme ownership. When something like this happens, the buck stops with management. I'll take responsibility and ownership for the the miscalculation, I suppose, and the re-release of that news. And the other thing that's very important to us is transparency. So, what happened there was we had a third-party consultant calculate our resources based on the recent drilling. It passed through a few levels of due diligence on our side, on the management side, and somehow we missed a calculation or arithmetic error on the spreadsheet that overcompensated the amount of base metals in the silver equivalent calculation. So it was artificially inflated slightly. We caught that the same day that we released it. We reviewed it, caught it, and subsequently had to put a re-release out. Now, that release that we put out, the final number there is an incredible number. Over basically 106 million ounces of combined silver equivalent in a resource in 18 months of drilling from discovery. Really, just an incredible performance by our team. And so, I'm a little bit sad that the team doesn't get the glory necessarily for that amazing outcome, because they should. But you know what? All of our investors, everybody that I'm talking to today in our meetings in Toronto, and I'm going to New York, and then we're doing a very long roadshow here to talk about Vizsla to investors. Everybody understands. As a matter of fact, many of them see it as a buying opportunity. It doesn't change anything about the project, and it's a fantastic outcome for us. So we're going to move on from that mistake. It wasn't easy to own up to it and take it on the chin, but that's what we have to do. And I think the project is just going to continue to get better and better. So for us, insiders put their money where their mouth was. We bought over $300,000 of stock in the last week, and we're going to continue to support the company.
So all in all, explain to someone how the vision of the company is intact and moving forward.
Well, first of all, Vizsla is very well financed. We have over $38 million in Canadian dollars in the bank right now. We have 120,000 meters of drilling. So in order to put this resource together, which is really an industry-leading maiden resource, you don't see this very often. In some cases, it's twice, the maiden resource for many kind of silver companies in Mexico. So we blew it out of the water. And that just shows how quality this asset is, how big Napoleon, our major vein there is, Tajitos, Copala. These veins have just given us more than we expected. And each of those parts of the resource are actually open for expansion with further drilling. So in order for us to have gotten to this number, we drilled 125,000 meters, so 125 kilometers of core into these veins. And we're going to do the same amount this year. So the resource is going to grow. We're going to make new discoveries. And as we do that, we're moving closer and closer to production. And so in order to go into production, we needed this resource to actually understand how to plan the mine. And so this is that first major milestone towards that. Now, the people that I talked to and the investors that we've been speaking to have all been very excited with this outcome here. And to reiterate, nothing's changed about the project other than it's gotten better. It was just an arithmetic mistake.
So right now we're seeing all of this stuff unfold with Russia, with Ukraine, and you're seeing a huge, as you said earlier, a molecule crisis. And you're seeing, whether it's wheat, whether it's nickel, everything is, it's actually quite scary. And one of the things that's going to be interesting out of that, we know silver is a tiny market. It was about $30 billion market.
Yeah.
And there's been such a distortion of that market due to the paper manipulation of it that, you've already got quite a distorted market. But now, whether it's companies like Russia and other companies that are looking to diversify outside of the dollar and they're stacking commodities, gold, silver, whether it's tech companies that need to make sure that they have necessary products, as you're watching this unfold, are you saying to yourself, yes, this is exactly why I got involved in silver?
Well, the first part of that is that, obviously it's a kind of a melancholy situation where you're profiting or succeeding based on political and world instability and war and things like that. So you never want to kind of take too much, well, any pleasure in that, really. But way that we do this is we've put our foot on these assets as almost a way to defend our net worth, our assets, because we want to own as much hard assets as possible. So, in Vizsla, we bought this project. We're drilling out what could be, an enormous, well, it is an enormous amount of silver, but it could be one of the world's largest districts for silver and gold. And, we have ownership through shares. And, that's a really, good way to do that. But we also have investments in nickel and copper and tin and, all of these things, I think, for two reasons. One is that, there's supply disruptions here with Russia. Even you're talking about natural gas and petrol and things like that. It's going to disrupt the supply, and those prices are going to go higher. And that's also what's happening to nickel. There's a major nickel production in Russia as well. So you have this supply disruption based on uncertainty around borders and sovereign countries and things like that. But you also have this frenzied demand here where people are going to be buying this because they think the price is going to go up, and you need it. You need metals to make a Tesla. You need metals to have power in your home. You need metals for everything. And I think the world kind of forgot about that and lost sight of that. And now we're seeing a very early stage of this kind of panic towards metals, and I think it's going to become more and more topical. And I've spent the last over a decade basically learning everything I could and buying as many assets really in the metal space, because I suspect that this is just the beginning, and people that have owned shares and assets and metals and are going to do very well in this new reality that we're in.
I was interviewing Keith Neumeyer, I think last week, and Keith was breaking down the math on the silver market about how much silver is used annually in electric vehicles, and then doing the math to tie into the government mandates on electric vehicles by X amount of date. And, the math was just so crazy. It was like there was more, they needed more just for the electric vehicle mandates. It was going to be more than all the silver that's mined annually in a year. And it's crazy to think about, because in addition to that, you also have the financial component where silver is a unique metal in that Keith calls it a strategic metal, in that there's this incredible projected industrial demand for it between EVs and tech, renewables, but also the sound money side of it, because we're in this, basically we're at the end of a currency cycle. And so you've got these two perfect storms that are brewing together at the same time. Which one of those, from the EV side and the math on the actual industrial demand versus the sound money currency side, which initially brought you into silver? And then today, which do you think is a more compelling thesis as someone who owns a silver mine?
Well, I suppose the first thing that drew me to it was the sound money side. I considered gold and silver originally when I first was interested in this to be, almost quite similar in the sense that silver was just a more accessible, way to play gold, really. And then, over that period of time, I suppose over the last 20 years or so, the applications for silver have grown. Silver's become far more important in the green economy. And so, recognizing that was always an opportunity, I now look at it and I'm almost overwhelmed by the opportunity for both of them. And they play into each other in a sense, where you have governments spending money, printing money essentially that they haven't earned. They're printing it to stimulate these green economies and programs that affect these outcomes, and then that in turn is very good for sound money as well too. So it's as you and Keith said here, it's a perfect storm. It's going to be incredible, and I was sitting down with one of my colleagues today, and he was saying, "Oh, when I started with a major silver miner, my career, silver was $30, and went down to 15, and now it's on its way back to 30. Of course, it's going to go to 30." And I said, "Yeah, you're probably right, but that was a long time ago." And just thinking about how much more money's in circulation now. Think about this modern monetary theory. I could see silver going multiple times from here, along with all these other metals. I think copper could go to $12+. I think gold will go to far higher than what we've seen here as a recent high. So I think sadly this is the way it's all playing out through war and conflict, but it needed a catalyst really to kick this off, and that's what we're seeing here.
It's weird because when all the lockdowns happened, and then the United States printed like 40% of all currency in whatever it was, 18 months, and there was the market crash, and then the subsequent money printing, it was like everyone kind of woke up for a minute, and everyone was like, "Wow, we need to buy commodities, we need to buy sound money," and then everything just kind of got lulled back to sleep for a while, and everyone's like, "Yeah, it's fine again." Yeah. And then this happened, and everyone's like, "Actually, it's not fine again." And it's interesting to see the cycle of that, and how the psychological, how fear is the driver for gold and silver. What's your thoughts on that?
I agree entirely. Whether it's fear of losing, assets or net worth, or fear of missing out on profits, fear is going to drive people, and then it'll be greed. And speaking of that, maybe talking about the investing public as a whole, felt like they needed more exposure. But right now, we're at a position. I know Rick Rule talks about this as well. We're in a situation where all of the world's money managers have pretty much zero allocation or zero exposure to any of these companies. It takes a little while. Right now there's probably portfolio managers and asset managers sitting in there thinking, "Oh, we should own some gold." They're like, "Oh, okay, well, which company? What about Agnico or B2? What's an Agnico? What's a B2?" They don't know. It's going to take them a little bit of time to figure that out. And there's probably some 26-year-old guy that's never bought a gold stock and only knows crypto and these things. So, there's going to be this great transition into these metals, and from what we're seeing now, it's going to be incredible. It's going to be fantastic to see that, because there's just going to be so much money piling into the space.
Where do you think it goes from here? I mean, when you're looking at inflation, it is out of control. I mean, it really is out of control. The German producer price index was 30% year over year, which is the highest since 1949. I mean, then you're seeing like wheat up like however many percent in a day, and this up and that up. And I just wonder, where does it all go? I mean, what do you think happens?
Well, I think, there's things like this have happened in history in the past. And I suppose, there is the undertows of end of empire and, things like that, end of currency, US backed kind of currency and things like that. But, I think, eventually these high prices solve themselves because they limit demand, and it slows inflation, I suppose. But, I think it has many, many legs here. There's going to be spikes, and there's going to be corrections and spikes and corrections. But overall, I could see the whole commodity complex and everything that, we invest in going up multiple times here, maybe even as much as 10x as a whole. And in that, there's going to be companies like Vizsla or others that have success with their underlying assets that go up, multiple times from that. So, it happened before. During the Middle Eastern crisis in early 2000s, the crash of the .com sector and broader markets, and then everybody piled into commodities. I think we're a couple of years into something very similar to that. but in another sense, very similar to the 70s commodity bubbles. But these things eventually play out. So it is important to, hang in there and hold on through the corrections, but also identify when that top is in. But I think we're maybe as much as 10 years out from that.
Yeah, it's crazy to look at how quickly the tides change. You just said like hang in there. It just makes it, you see firsthand how important it is to really understand why you're buying something, right?
Yeah.
I was talking to my friend. He just got back from Tony Robbins' little mastermind group as a financial event. Some small group with Paul Tudor Jones was there and Larry Summers and all these big billionaire investors that Tony hangs out with. And he's like, he wanted me to go and I ended up not being able to make it. And he kind of said like, it's a good thing you didn't go because man, they were bearish. The only thing they were bullish on was commodities. Yeah. And you're starting to see that, right?
Oh yeah. Well, and the way that most people play that to start is oil, right? So oil is the kind of the most secular commodity. And but from there, it goes down the food chain and, people start to find gains where they are. So eventually, I know you talk to a lot of people in our sector here, which is the more junior side of these companies. And, the way that food chain goes is I think the big, broader oil companies will do very well to start. Then it goes into, maybe the larger copper producers or base metal producers. But, people start to get hungry for gains, right? And they find those further down the food chains with, with juniors, like companies like Vizsla or something between, 500 and $2 billion market cap, and so, when that happens, there's just so much capital that floods into the market. And so it's important to identify that as well if you're investing in this space, to know what part of the cycle we're in. And, like I said, I feel like we're very early innings. And if you trace some of the old bull markets that you can go back and look at, even if you just look at proxies like the XAU and GDXJ and things like that, you can kind of trace that and see what it looked like in the past. But you can also see that in that relative chart where, I don't know if you've ever seen that, but the S&P to commodities chart, it's hit like an absolute bottom here. And I think there's a major correction coming for the broader markets, and then also a re-rating and multiple time re-rating for commodities here. So it's going to be, there will be, like I said, peaks and valleys and ups and downs. But as I said, I think this is just the very beginning of something very exciting here.
Rick said that about, it's funny you said that because while you were listening, I recall him saying that about the 70s, like the legendary commodities market, that it began with oil, first of all, and then oil catches the flow, and then everything else, just all the commodities just keep moving like in a tide.
Yeah. And that's the way that, you mentioned those money managers, billionaire money managers, they don't, no one really wants to stick their I was going to say something else, but no one wants to stick their neck out and get out there, get too early and be like, look like an idiot now for buying commodities too soon. But when one or two of them do it, they all flood in. And if you remember like March 2020, Warren Buffett bought Barrick in Berkshire. And then it's socially acceptable. I can talk about gold at this whatever, the University Club in New York or wherever it is, right? And that's kind of how it goes, right? So there's a bit of MOMO, there's a bit of momentum in all of that. And when the tastemakers choose oil, then it gives a green light for other people to say, okay, well I'm going to beat them to copper, and then I'm going to beat them to silver, and it all kind of it lifts all the boats in this tide.
Yeah, it's going to be crazy. I mean, when you factor in the amount of currency debasement and everyone looking for somewhere to put their money, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with commodities. I surely feel good about where my money is. I don't know about you.
Well, I was thinking about that before we got on today, but and it's sad. I mean, you don't want there to be war and people. But I mean, it happens all the time all around the world, but people seem to care particularly because it's Ukraine now. But, it happened. I mean, Yemen, there have been people being, massacred, for years straight here. But you don't want to profit necessarily off of violence or anything like that. But in a situation where you're worried about hyperinflation and how is my money going? Am I going to be able to afford a house or groceries or whatever it is? If you have your money in gold, and I have, probably got 90% of my net worth in mining stocks and the like. I sleep pretty well at night because of the fact that I think if anything, I need more exposure. That's the thing that keeps me up. I just want more.
Yeah, it's just amazing to see. We've talked about this type of stuff on the channel for a while, but it's exciting and from like a purely financial perspective, but it's, as a father, I'm genuinely and as a citizen, I'm genuinely terrified of it. But I guess it's just, you've done a good job of focusing on what you can control, and you've directed all your energy into, here's a problem, here's an opportunity. Let me use all my skills and talents and build a team and company to solve a problem. Yeah. And you put your energy where you could control. And I guess that's kind of the only thing you can do, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing is, I guess, not worry too much, because, the world goes through cycles. There's waves of these things that happen. And we'll most likely all make it through to the next glory days, I suppose, on the other side, where, everybody's kind of forgotten about commodities again. And the next speculative thing is hot, and, everything's back to normal, I suppose. But things always go through cycles, and that's always what's kept me going in commodities as well. Is that I started at the very top when I'd be at these conferences in Canada, and there'd be big U.S. bankers walking around trying to buy these $10 million micro cap juniors, and I didn't know enough at that point to realize that was the absolute top. But that'll happen again, and things will kind of, everything comes in waves and cycles. So
we're going to rug pull Charlie Munger. All right. So what's next up for Vizsla? I know I'm always poking you in the ribs to tell you guys got to get to the Lobo Tigres pre-production sweet spot here soon. Yeah. What's going on?
Well, the milestone, that resource is that first step towards that. So now we've identified this 13 million ounce core in Napoleon that's a very high grade. It's one of the highest grades in Mexico. So it's really quite impressive. And so if we were to look to production, that could be a place to start. So now we have that data, that information, and I think that we'll be in a position to keep pushing towards production. And we understand, in a high price environment, you really want to be out there selling that metal. So, we're very fired up about that. The management, the team, we're focused on it. And, I think just bear with us, but we have to do things the right way through resources and mine planning.
Beautiful. All right, Mike, I know you are busy on a world tour right now, on the early stages of your world tour. So we appreciate you joining us. We're going to link the Vizsla Silver website right there down below in the description. Vizsla's out on the New York Stock Exchange. We're going to link Vizsla Twitter. I'll link Mike's Twitter right there down below. Go ahead and hit the like button on this video. Send it out in the YouTube universe. Comment down below. Go Silver, go, right there down below in the comments. Us crazy silver people, it was a little rough going for a while, but you're starting to see you weren't crazy. You understood the thesis of what's happening in the world, and silver is one of a few important places to be. That's going to be a great beneficiary. So congratulations to everyone that hung on during that time, right, Mike?
Absolutely. Good work.
All right. So we want to thank you for listening today. And we want to thank Mike for joining.
Thanks, Jake. I appreciate it. And thanks to your listeners too.